Later.
Please tell. We can pause it at any time, right?
Yeah, I think that's working.
Oh.
Yep. Sweet.
Cool.
Alright. Hey guys, today I'm here with Phyllis from Tensegrity. Am I saying that right?
Yes.
From the Warunga practice.
Yes.
They are, correct me if I'm wrong, but chiropractic and specialise in sports, rehab.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yeah.
Phyllis herself is graduated in chiropractic and also has a master's. Is that right? I've been working with Phyllis for a long time, and I invited her down today basically because I think our stories align and how we view health and fitness are very aligned. And I really love her style of looking at the human body and I guess the people that she treats and how she goes about treatment. I would say she's far more than just a chiropractor based on basically what you've experienced, right?
Yeah.
And what you've seen throughout the years of doing. How long have you been doing?
So I've been graduated for about 5 years now, but I probably started 10 years ago, hands-on work. So it feels like a lot longer than I've actually had my license, but yeah.
So would you say over those 10 years of doing it, your views have changed?
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, starting off, being, everyone gets the same formula, protocols, treatments, and then people weren't getting better, and you were like, why are they coming back every week? Doesn't really make sense. And then realising that there's more to the body and everyone moves so differently. Just because one person has a knee or hip injury doesn't mean that everyone else is going to react the same way or, have the results.
So how would you say, from what you've seen over the 10 years, how you differ from the typical chiropractor?
Yeah, so...
I mean, one is an experience, you've got 10 years behind you, which makes a big difference. But
I think there's a few different mindsets of chiropractors. As soon as they hear chiropractors, they're like, oh, I want you to crack my back. And that's not always it.
Just by, I'll say on that, I don't think you've cracked me once, right?
No, not yet, unfortunately. I get told I'm the worst chiropractor because I don't crack people's backs. Even though they ask me. So there's 3 different, I think, mindsets of chiros. There's the old school style where you're in there for 5 minutes and you just get magic 7, 2 neck cracks, mid back, lower back, maybe hip thrusts.
And easy spots to manipulate, right?
Yeah. It's sort of like everyone sort of works to that, but not all those joints need to be manipulated. And then there's the more rehab version. So whether you need manipulation, you need soft tissue, you need dry needling, more importantly, what exercise to try and make those patterns hold. And then there's those floaters who are sort of in between. They don't really know why they're doing it, but they're just doing a little bit of both because short-term wise it does get results, but long-term wise how to benefit the patient most.
And where do you see yourself?
Definitely more the rehab side of it, doing quite a lot of exercises, a lot of hands-on work as well, a lot of soft tissue, work on the muscle. Everyone says, is it the bones that come first or is it the muscles that control everything? Well, there's no either or, it's both. You've got to have your whole skeletal system working with your muscular system plus your nervous system all work together to be able to move properly.
So I guess what you're saying is kind of like to look at the whole picture.
Yeah, 100%. So, it could be one or the other. You can treat all the muscles you want in the world, but if the joint isn't moving the way it should, then it's not going to work.
You can't utilise it.
No.
Awesome. We want to start with, do you have a funny story? The funniest story you have in your 10 years of treating someone? Do you have a funny story to tell?
I don't know if it's funny.
Or the most awkward moment?
I would have to say young kids, if they've got hamstring injuries, tears and all the rest, they're probably a bit more sensitive to that area. And as a girl, you're working on it and they're laughing, giggling, and of course sometimes they just can't control certain things and they'll fart out there. And your face is this close to their butt and you're just like, do I ignore it or do I just, laugh along with it?
What do you do?
I laugh along with it. I can't ignore it, it's happened. Everyone's heard it.
Awesome.
Yeah. So that's probably the funniest ones. Being kicked in the face, haven't broken my nose yet, that happens.
Well, hopefully that doesn't happen.
Yeah. Yeah. Just tears running down my face. Just a natural reflex, you can't help it. Sure, all the boys who played rugby has had that feeling, or MMA and things like that, getting hit in the nose and your tears just come out. And you're trying to be all professional and you're like, oh, can I, I'm okay, I'm all right, there's nothing wrong.
How have you been hit in the nose?
Reflex, so like
Oh, really?
working on the back of the leg, and kids' legs just naturally come up and try and protect, or and their heels.
Dangerous game out there.
Yeah, so if you ever like notice, if I'm trying to work on your hamstring, I've always got one hand holding a leg down, or
Just to play it safe.
Exactly, protecting myself now. I know.
So looking back, I just read up on your story. It sounds very similar to my sort of experience. So having injuries, but working through them personally, and then on the other side, then being able to help others through the same thing, and you learn so much from that experience.
100%.
Is that what's your story been like to get to where you are now?
I think growing up, I've got a bit of like traditional Chinese medicine just from my background, family going into that, and it amazed me like the human body being able to heal itself without, I guess, surgery or medication, and using organic things. From, I guess, joint manipulation, being able to get moving better. I saw that from my family, and I was like, wow, body can do so much.
So that was before you studied?
That was like when I was at school, high school, primary school, and I knew I wanted to do something with the human body.
Because of that?
Because of that, with like seeing my family go through it, and then
Did they have injuries or?
Just repetitive issues, like repetitive load, repetitive stress issues. Probably not exercising enough. A lot of people, when they have kids, exercise drops off, their body isn't as well conditioned, they get more injuries, especially when you're aging. Degeneration is completely natural. But how do you make your body work optimally, like throughout that process? And being able to accept it, knowing that there's, little aches and pains here and there, that's completely normal to have, but what is good, aches and pains, and what's bad aches and pains.
So how do you, when you, with a client, how would you describe that to them?
So like I always try and relate it back to myself. I don't think you really know an injury, or you really know how someone is experiencing it unless you've been through it yourself. So in a weird way, I like getting injuries because then that way at least I know what it feels like. I know what the rehab's like. I know the pain that they're going through.
So you can relate to them.
100%, and telling them this is normal, this is not normal. And I think most of all is letting them know, like if I go and garden for 4 or 5 hours, something that I maybe not do as regularly, you might get a little bit of a sore back, you might get a bit of sore knees, but that only should last for 1 or 2 days, and then that should slowly taper off a little bit more. But if things are lingering for weeks and it's just repetitive, one movement constantly, this hurts, this hurts, this hurts, well, that's not
got to change.
Exactly. So what is normal? When do you need to visit someone? When do you need to get a check before things get really out of control? And that could be in a month, could be in a year, could be in 10 years before your body tells you, enough is enough.
And is your advice to get in earlier rather than later?
Not always. I think your body has the ability to work out a lot of things. If you're doing the right thing in the first place, then a lot of people say, I roll my ankle, fine. But then I roll this other time, and then it's like, it's not great. It's been lingering around. There's some things that they can't do, instability, feeling. I mean, sometimes they don't even notice it. So it's how aware and how knowledgeable that person is to themselves, knowing what is right, what feels right, and how their body moves.
I guess to the layman, I'm just thinking, if something occurred, like you said, gardening for a couple of hours and they are sore, would it not be better to, if they're unsure, to come and see someone like yourself? And even if it's just to get the all clear, versus holding on to that pain for a month or two, which makes your job, I would imagine, harder to treat, right? Because you get compensations.
100%. Obviously, the earlier, if you have an injury, the better the prognosis is, generally getting it checked. And
you're going to clear them straight away, right? There's nothing there you're going to be honest.
Exactly. Give them some exercises, send them their way, sort of thing. And I think it's really important to just let them know that there is little things that they do every single day that can give them certain patterns, and we don't even notice this. So, look, no one's perfect. I can't say that anyone's perfect, but you should be able to be good enough to be able to manage it yourself quite well.
Sorry, we interrupted your story there.
Oh, no.
We got sidetracked. So you saw that medicine being used when you were younger, and then that always knew you wanted to work with your body. And what was next?
And then I guess I graduated. You got to naturally, choose a degree. Being 17, 18, you have to know what you want to do for the rest of your life. So I got into Chiro and I got into forensics. So forensic science, I love that sort of thing, but there wasn't a lot of job opportunities in Australia unless you move overseas, or unless crime starts to happen a lot more in Australia.
Touch wood.
Yeah, which we don't want. So I did Chiro, and I said if I don't like it, I'll change out of it. And you know, there was a lot of doubts through the earlier years of like, because there's so many split views of chiropractic and chiropractors out there, it's a little bit hard and frustrating at times, but knowing that I'm doing right by my profession to, you know, people coming through, it's kept me on. And I guess you do more courses, you learn about more techniques.
What inspired you to do more courses along the way? You mentioned earlier that you had a couple of injuries. Is that what sort of?
Yeah, so I mean, I've done like mostly sporting injuries. So TFCC strain from basketball.
So what's that?
So there's a cartilage in your wrist,
Yep.
and you can't really heal it without surgery. But just did it with sport. It's a pretty common one for gymnasts and basketball players.
Yep.
So I did that one, broke my ankle. As an acrobatic, I did my back quite a few times. And the biggest one recently was my ACL, which is always fun.
Yep.
And just trying to find answers that I wasn't getting given through my own profession, talking to more people out there, doing different courses, whether it's a physio course. I learned from an osteopath my first 6 years of training, to, you know, learning from the ground up and from the top down as well. So not always, just because it's a knee problem, doesn't mean it's always from the knee. So trying to branch out and pick people's brains, what's worked for them and what's, you know, what hasn't worked. You tend to, you learn a lot from other people's experience.
Yeah, I was going to say, I guess your philosophy is developed from not being able to get the answers that you resonated with over the years and with your injuries.
Yeah, 100%.
And that forced you to go exploring,
elsewhere.
I guess.
Yeah, definitely.
And from that, it's a never-ending growth
cycle.
and learning, right?
Yeah,
which is cool.
You can't ever, I don't think you can ever have the answers for everything, especially in science. It's always changing. I think every 3 minutes there's a new research paper coming out.
Yep.
Who's going to keep on top of all of them?
Just got to do what works, right?
Exactly.
Yeah,
so I think learning every single day is probably the most important thing. Not focusing on that 99%, but focusing on that 1% every single day.
Yeah.
It's probably most important.
That's so funny because when I talk about nutrition to our members, I say the opposite.
All right.
I say focus on the 95%.
Yeah.
People that so much time and energy on the 1%ers.
Yeah.
So should I have oat milk or almond milk?
Yeah.
The delivering, spending so much energy on that
Yeah.
versus not having processed food in the first place.
Yeah.
For example, there's your 95%.
Yeah.
If you do that stuff right, you're going to get 95% of the results.
Yeah.
They spend so much time and energy on the outliers, the 1%. So
Yeah.
it's different philosophy, but it's
Yeah.
the same idea.
I mean, it's based. I mean, if it's nutrition, then you want to do it as often as you possibly can. But like, for example, growing in knowledge, you can't spend 95% of your day always learning because then you're not going to experience it. Yeah, exactly. So I think it's applied differently for different areas. But I think there's a good, as long as you have a good balance, that's how it all works.
100%.
Yeah.
I guess over the 10 years, what's been the most common 3, reasons for people visiting the centre? And why do you think that is?
I think it's different for every practitioner depending on how you treat and what you focus on.
Both for you personally?
Yeah.
What do you see a lot of?
I get a lot of feet. I don't have a foot fetish, but I get a lot of feet problems. I think just because my name is out there for knowing foot mechanics a little bit more in depth than some of the chiros out there.
Yep.
The philosophy behind the feet and whether flat feet or high arches is better or worse, blah, blah, blah. I guess I get a lot more shoulders and possibly like knees and hips. Because pretty much from head to toe. No, I think the top one would definitely be the feet, and then it would be a divide. I mean, chiropractors naturally necks and lower backs, but because that's our bread and butter, I think we focus a lot more of our time and energy working on peripherals, for example, because that's not what we are known for. So we want to try.
So what do you mean by peripherals, just for the people?
So spinal is more central, but peripheral is anything from like your shoulder out to all the way to your hand, or your hip all the way down to your feet. Most chiropractors are known for back pain or neck pain. A lot of GPs will probably send you to a chiropractor for that. But my cousin broke his ankle and said, I might have to go and see a physio. Do you know anyone? And I was like, excuse me, what? So even, yeah, a little bit. I was like, oh, am I not good enough? No, the general public just probably has that assumption, which, most car will probably do that, but being a bit more sports based, a big focus on peripherals.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So you think, you can get shoulders and feet, the main two, let's go with those two. And what do you think, again, for those listening, what are maybe 2 or 3 exercises for each of those areas that you could recommend to, I guess, improve or lessen their chances of needing to come and see you?
I think feet is probably the easiest one. Just take off your shoes, go out and walk in natural environments a little bit more. Rocks, sand, trying to get your toes to actually activate instead of just using the ball of your foot the whole time. A lot of heel spurs, a lot of bursitis, fat pad inflammations, Achilles tendons, and that's because if you have a look at a lot of people's shoes, they're actually higher from the back to the front, so it's as if you're wearing high heels all the time, chronically shortening the calf. So take off your shoes and just walk around. Try and get your toes to move like your fingers are. If you're covering your hands, 24 hours a day, how do you expect to be able to type? And same thing.
I'm smiling because you sound like me.
He's giving me a script to read. No, I'm joking.
That's awesome.
That's my big one for feet.
About shoulders.
Yeah, shoulders. For me, it's actually trying to use your hands above your head a little bit more often. A lot of office desk workers, always hands are below, not rested, so the shoulders will drop down. Over stretching or over lengthening through their trap, and then they're like, oh, my trap hurts, can you rub my traps? Well, they're overstretched, and they're over length, so why would you keep on rubbing them to try and bring them down even more? Trying to get the shoulders into a more neutral position for your shoulder blades to be in. My big shoulder thing is a lot of shoulder pain or problems don't actually come from the shoulder. It actually comes from the scapula and also the thoracic spine, not having the mobility and the movement right.
Okay, so would you say for the shoulder, so we've got feet, take your shoes off as often as you can. For the shoulder, do more activities overhead.
Yeah, as simple as like putting your hand over your head in that position, or hands behind, interlocked fingers behind your head.
Easy one to do it.
Yeah, just opening up,
Yep.
trying to get your medial scapula to actually activate and pull you back a little bit more. Everyone's always like this with dropped shoulders. I mean, if I sit like this all day, it's going to be uncomfortable as well.
And what about, you mentioned scapular rhythm and flexibility through the spine?
Yeah, so
what would you do for the thoracic? So for you guys, thoracic is the middle of your spine. So you've got your neck, your lower back, and the thoracic sits in the middle, so around your rib cage area.
Yeah, the middle curve of your spine. Yeah.
So what's an easy one?
Sitting as simple as doing reverse C's, pulling back and trying to get your chest up towards the ceiling, pulling your shoulder blades back and down together.
Okay,
I'll get a bit of extension happening through there.
So lifting your sternum up towards the ceiling.
Yep.
And opening your hands up, palms facing the ceiling.
Palm facing the ceiling, turning your thumbs back as far as you possibly can to try and open it up. Yeah, lifting up your rib cage to be proud to the sky.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. And what do you think's the third one you mentioned? Scapular rhythm. Or shoulder blade.
Yeah, shoulder blade.
What's an easy one for?
Yeah, so the shoulder blade naturally, if you just do backward rolls, that's a really nice one to just start off with. Palms face up, palms are always face down, typing on your phone. It's always rolling and protracting, bringing your shoulder forward.
Yeah.
So just opening it up naturally, turning your palm face up to the sky, will just externally rotate and just let your shoulder blades or your shoulder sit back a little bit nicer.
Awesome.
And then from there, just roll backwards and try and squeeze between your shoulder blades.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So hopefully, guys, if you do that, you're going to send Phyllis out of business.
So don't do that.
3 tips there for your shoulder. So shoulder rolls, chest elevating towards the ceiling, and the opening up, hands on head, or spending time above your shoulder height, and get out of your shoes as often as you can.
100%.
And simple things you can do every day, just to alleviate these everyday aches and pains that we get that often progress into sometimes more nasty chronic injuries later on.
Yeah, definitely, especially shoulders and feet. Like there's long-term injuries that people get.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And with your injuries that you mentioned, what's been the biggest takeaway for you?
So, I mean, I've had quite a few injuries, but I think the biggest one I've had is probably the ACL. before my ACL, I've hurt my hip on the right, and I realised that my foot was doing something different on the right.
Okay.
And I didn't know, I was trying to fix my hip and my lower back quite a lot, and then I was trying to fix my foot, and they were all individuals at first, and then my knee decided to cark it.
In the centre, right?
Yeah, so realising that my feet probably had a lot to do with it.
Is that where your interest in the foot came from?
It just made a lot more sense, and it sort of linked everything together.
Yep.
Not just knee injuries, but even back injuries, hip injuries. A lot comes from the floor up. I realised. So I mean, for myself, it made sense, and then applying it to everyone else. I mean, not always, but a lot of the time it can be.
Yeah. Again, I had a similar experience. So I've had chronic pain in my foot for about 4 years, but again, prior to that, I didn't have any symptoms. Right?
Yeah.
So once the symptoms show themselves, it's like you start realising how important the foot is, and it's the foundation for everything stacked on top of it. So when you start going down that rabbit hole, there's a lot to learn there, and I think it's probably one of the most overlooked areas of the human body, feet and ankles, and getting your stability from there first.
Yeah.
Would you agree? Or?
100%, definitely. Yeah. Not a lot of people are even looking at that. They'll get an ankle roll and they'll just keep working on the ankle, or a knee, patellar tracking issue, and they'll just work on the kneecap.
Yeah.
But yeah, you got to look above and below the area and see what's going on. And if it doesn't make sense, question it more.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. And I think for us, we finally got exposed to that, and a little bit earlier than a lot of other people did, which is very lucky.
Yeah,
but unfortunately,
I get what you mean by injuries suck, but they also you learn.
Yeah, exactly.
If you allow them to. Yeah. So there's a lot of people that don't learn from their injuries.
Yeah.
The opportunity's there.
Yes, 100%.
If you were to talk to someone, like I know you're not in the gym scene so much, you're on the treatment, but you were very active growing up.
Yep.
Talking to someone that's, been on the couch or inactive, or like you said earlier, had a couple of kids and stopped training for a long time, but now looking to get back into it. So say they've had 2-3 kids, they're busy at work, busy with the kids, but they now know that they need to get back into exercise. How would you recommend they do that?
I think at their own pace, I think it's really important. Don't just try and do what you were doing prior to kids, because everyone assumes their body can tolerate and withstand the load. Do know that there is up days and down days. So if you're not feeling crash hot, then don't push it too far, but don't not do anything either. From going on a small walk to actually trying to lift weights and doing a variety of movements. I think it's the most important thing for your body to be able to get back into shape.
Yeah, I really like that point of people assume they have the capabilities of 10 years ago, because time flies like that.
Yeah.
And they don't realise that if you don't use it, you lose it.
Yeah.
And how many people do you get, doing casual soccer on the weekend, in the office sitting down all day, go on the weekend without any training, and first day of the season, I think
they do a hamstring.
do a hamstring. So
6 weeks out.
I was talking to a nurse here, he was saying the same thing. So it's like clockwork. Like they go, it must be soccer season starting now because the amount of people that are coming in.
Yeah.
So I think that's an awesome point, is to realise that unfortunately you probably have gone backwards a little bit, and just start out, like you said, really, really gently. So whether it's going for a walk, don't need to run straight away. I think that's, in my opinion, that's probably the biggest mistake I see, is running.
Yeah.
Because it's a go-to. You don't need any equipment, you can just chuck on some shoes and go for it.
Yeah.
But I liken it to a car, sitting still for 10 years.
Yeah.
And then tyres are flat, cobwebs everywhere, oil hasn't been changed, nothing's ready to go, but you jump in it and start driving to Queensland.
Yeah.
You kind of need to do a bit of nurturing first.
100%. Servicing, and I think by servicing, that car analogy is conditioning well, making sure your body can,
Start small, right?
Exactly, withstand the actual load, the distance or the intensity, or whatever way you want to talk about it. But it's really, make sure your body is ready for it.
Awesome. So we won't take any more of these guys' time, but thank you very much for coming in. If you were to leave them with one tip or one takeaway, what would that be? Sorry, put it on the spot there. Give you a second.
My big one is
just for living a healthier life, I guess.
Don't sit on chairs. That's my big one.
Yep.
Yeah. Do anything, but sit on chairs. We do it enough, and it's not natural for our body.
Okay.
Try and get your, move a bit more naturally to what you're used to. If you have kids, have a look at how they move and have a look at how you move. That's
Awesome.
probably, yeah.
Thanks for that. We'll leave it there.
Cool. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Sweet. Don't know how long that went.
How did that go?
I think that was pretty good.